This is, Jeff, as it won't surprise you to learn, the Final Word Cricket Podcast with me.
I know. I'm aware. I'm up to date with this. Me. I'm here. You're here. Everything's here. The Sheffield Shield is here. It is Shield. We are knee deep in Shield. Is everybody still in touch at the moment? I'm trying to read the
2 rounds to go.
Decipher the table.
Yeah, so 2 rounds to go. No, Tasmania can't make the final. No, hang on, they can. They need everything to go right, wouldn't they? They need everything to go right.
They need Lawrence Neil-Smith to go on a tear. That's what we want to see on the Final Word.
Done a hammy, unfortunately. I'm sorry
he's gone on the other kind of tear.
Yeah,
sorry,
he has. Which he's playing club cricket in England this year. I've got an idea, which I haven't told you about yet, to document his season on the podcast over here.
Okay.
I've never met Lawrence before, but we know his mum, and hopefully she can make it happen. We'll see how we go. So SA are on the top of the ladder.
That's how we get all of our interviews, actually. You just call Jimmy Anderson's mum.
Yeah.
Just call Kumar Sangakkara's mum.
That's how we do business. South Australia won by 87 runs in that shootout against Tassie, so we got through half that game last week. SA all out 93, Tassie all out 101, but then SA recovered in their second innings and made 388. And Andrew Sampson's special, Jeff, 5 scores between 36 and 75 and none higher than Sanger reaching that mark. And then Tassie was set 381, all at 293. So Tassie were competitive, but for the second time this season, Lloyd Pope has bowled South Australia to victory in the 4th innings, picking up 4. Nathan McAndrew, 3 after his 7 for last week.
Is it unusual to have 5 scores between 36 and 75?
Probably not, but you know how he likes those.
Unusual.
You're probably right. I saw it and I was pondering who's made the big score. It was probably more that it's when there's no, in the absence of a big score out of 388 was more the marginally noteworthy thing there.
Oh, right. As in like a score that big, but nobody's made more than
that
75.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's that test score from a couple of years ago where England made 600 and didn't have anyone make more than 99 or something.
Sure. I mean, that is a little more interesting. I don't know if that's up there with Samo's best.
No, believe me.
No shade, Andrew.
I didn't ask him this. This is me who's advanced that it's a Samo thing. I haven't communicated with the great man.
Oh, okay, right, all right. Well, I retract my statement. I've besmirched the reputation of the 2,000 digits of pi invigilator unfairly. Yes. If you want to hear that story, listen to Storytime from a few days ago.
Our Peter Russell Clark impersonator, Andrew Sampson.
Doesn't swear as much.
No, that's true.
Peter Russell Clark outtakes. I don't know if anybody's like that was really early internet stuff.
Yeah,
some of the early viral internet. If you could still find that, my word.
Mentioned Lloyd Pope's 4 for South Australia, nearly in the final now. They've won 5 of their 8 games, so a great season for them. They're 11 points clear with 2 rounds to go. It would be a shocker for them to miss entirely, but in pole position to get the home final. Kenny McAlpine, great mate of the show, and Matt Clemo were noting that unfortunately the final will clash with Gather Round. Might be a good thing. Gather Round at Karen Rolton. Sorry, wouldn't be, the game would be at Karen Rolton. Adelaide Oval hosting all of the footy games that it hosts in that weekend. And actually, that could be brilliant. If Gather Round's playing out where there's 9 games of footy and the Sackers are hosting the Shield final, I was thinking that'd be a bad thing. But no, let's turn that into let's get 7,000 people in their footy scarves down to pack out Karen Rolton Oval to see the Sackers.
When is it?
Win their first Shield in 31 years. Ends on March the 30th is the final day. Something like that. You still here? You still in Melbourne?
Yeah.
Tempted. Go watch the Cats play. Why don't you go watch the Cats play, then go and cover the Shield final for us?
I've got a wedding that weekend. Not mine, but yeah.
Thread the needle.
If we're a week earlier. All
Maybe you can go there after the wedding. Look at it. You would need to go from Victoria. Victoria lost another close one to drop to 4th. They lost to New South Wales by 76 runs after falling short by a handful of runs against Tassie the week before. So in the end here, we left when New South Wales in their second dig were like 4 for 150. They were all out.
They were almost 200 ahead. And they were only 4 down. So I thought they were in the better position.
And they were, but then Scott Boland went nuts on morning 3, picked up 6 for 46, bowled out New South Wales for 174.
Scott Boland at wickets at the SCG? No.
Bit of a similar drumbeat to 2023 with the WTCF. Because Hazelwood's not going to play for the Blues in the last 2 Shield rounds. They're protecting him, understandably. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. They're cotton wooling Hazelwood, right? So similar vibes to 23, where it'll be Boland against Hazelwood for the final spot, but Boland will be the man in possession, the man in form. I'm not saying that Josh Hazelwood isn't in Australia's best three fast bowlers. I would never say that. But it'll be a similar debate as they get nearer and nearer to the 11th of June. That's a good thing for Australian cricket.
Got to play him. Got to play Boland, don't you, if he's fit the way he's going?
Probably, but I don't think it's as clear-cut as some people put it. I don't think it's like if Boland's fit. If Hazelwood and Boland are both fit, I don't think it's like I would ignore anyone who's too effusive either way. This is a 55-45 either way. Like, this is where you selectors earn their money.
Yeah, it is, but there's a, as your phrase you like to use, procedural fairness. I think if you have a guy who hasn't bowled since November because he's been injured, and you have a guy who took 10 for in his most recent Test match, very fair. It's a very fair point. It's a very fair point. So, Victoria was set 231 and they botched it all at 154. They were flattered by Todd Murphy making 40 not out when they were 8 for 95 at one point. Jack Bird, how's this? By the way, I love the fact that Jackson Bird's cricket archive profile lists him as Jack Bird. They've just been listening to the podcast for a long time, clearly. Took 5 for 68 to win the Blues the game. In doing so, passed 400 Shield wickets. He's got 404 at 21.9 in the Shield. And he passed 500 first-class wickets at 24.5 as well. One of the great domestic careers. And you go through it, there's only not a lot of 400 bowlers. It's not a lot of bowlers with 400 in the Shield.
He's the fifth ever. So you got Grimmett.
Grimmett leads with 500. Yeah.
Then Kaspovich for 441, Bickle 430, Joey Angel 419. So there's a chance that a really good chance that Bird will go past all of them and only have Grimmett ahead of him. He would need to play for probably 3 or 4 more seasons to get Grimmett. But, it's just a great career at domestic level and a very competent one when he briefly got the chance to play for the Australian Test team. March the 6th is when the penultimate round will begin. So we've got Victoria playing South Australia, New South Wales playing WA, and Queensland hosting Tasmania, and then the final round will follow the week after that. We'll be keeping a very close eye on it, and I hope South Australia make the final and host it, as they are the Dean Jones Cup, which we've got the final agreed. The 7 rounds are complete. South Australia finished first by a game and a half, 21 points for them. Victoria needed to win their last game against New South Wales after the Shield round to make sure of their spot, and they chased 311. Campbell Kellaway, 117 not out, one to watch. Everybody rates him.
Kellaway. Folks, let me tell you about Minnie the Moocher.
Everyone rates him. I thought he was related to Charlie Kellaway and did for like the whole time that he's been playing domestic cricket, but no, their names are spelt differently. He's related to the Kellaways.
Duncan Kellaway and Andrew Kellaway. Andrew Duncan.
Yeah. So different Kellaway clan, but more on the he didn't play in the 26 Ashes Kellaway, but more spoiler, more on the 1926 Ashes coming your way in the final word feed very soon indeed.
Just for a minute, I thought the 26 Ashes A haven't happened yet, and B there isn't one in 26, but previously.
As you know, one of my favourite ever series, and I'm going to indulge in a long conversation about it on the podcast in a couple of weeks after the Champions Trophy. South Australia could afford to lose their last game. It was a high-scoring game against WA. They lost their last game, and WA routed Queensland. Anyway, the guts of it is Dean Jones Cup final, South Australia hosting that. How cool would that be if they did the double, winning both of the trophies at home? I know it's not Adelaide Oval home, but, they were the team that people derided as the weakest in the country for a long time. They've not been in a Shield final for over a decade. Yeah. It's a bloody good story.
It was true. Yeah. It was true. It's the power of the Nathan Mooks. It's Nathan Mook driven, and just all of the positive vibes from Bharat probably getting everybody. Adelaide Oval's the happiest joint in the country. You watch that intro to Australian Story where everybody's. A lot of that stuff was shot. I was walking into the ground with him that day, so all of the people he was getting hugged by, I was like, just stay out of the shot. just make sure I stay out the way of the camera. He does get a lot of hugs on the way into the ground. So maybe just all of that, all of the energy around South Australia has been that much better since he came along.
Last one on Aussie Matters. Matt Kuhneman's tests are complete in Brisbane after his action interrogation that we detailed last week. We're told we're going to find out this weekend. So apparently the ICC were represented there and overseeing the test. So they obviously take it pretty seriously. The thought crossed my mind that, we still think of the Murali dots on the arm. I'm sure that's part of it, but like the technology has obviously improved dramatically in 30 years. Like I'd like to find out when this is all over and get one of the biomechanists from there, like we had the University of WA. But I wonder, how they actually make their final decisions with the technology they now have at their disposal. So Matt Kuhneman has been, yes, a busy boy, and hopefully it'll be good news for him because he's an exciting young bowler, and let's hope it's flexion and not too much bendy.
Let's hope it's 14.8 degrees. And he's using every possible little sliver of that while also staying within the guidelines.
I said that was the last Aussie thing. One more, actually. I feel duty bound to tell you, Jeff, that Shane Watson made 100 overnight. Playing for the Australian Masters against the West Indies Masters in India. He played like a 50-ball ton in a team that's comprised of all sorts. It includes James Pattinson, which I quite like that Patto's retired and he's got straight back on the former player, cash bandwagon that you can do with these tournaments.
He's probably 32, Patto.
Yeah, I know, right? Who'd want to face fucking Patto? Like Brian Lara was playing in this game, right? Brian Lara, of course, he still made runs, of course he did, but he isn't young, and Patto is by definition
he's in his 50s.
In his playing era. He just finished up early. I love the fact that two guys that we've played with, well, I've played with both, you've played with one, last year, Xavier Doherty and Bryce McGain are both playing in this Aussie team. And they have both played in the Aussie Media 11 in 24 and 25. They've played at Christchurch, and Bryce picked up you picked up Chris Gale in that game, by the way, bowling beautifully still at age 50. Bryce is a stunning leg spinner at this age.
Really?
He picked up a fourfer for me in that Media game on the mats at Sri Lanka, that ground you've played on at Gaul. And 2 days before that, where we played on the Bunsen at the MCC ground in Gaul as well on turf. And he combined with our patron Dan Price for 5 stumpings in 2 games, which was pretty fun, with Bryce just bamboozling types. So, and now he's picking up Chris Gale in front of a packed crowd in India watching the Masters tournament. So sadly they lost, but 100 for Watto, and a shout out to a beautiful man, Bryce McGain.
So is the Masters? How is the Masters different to the Legends? Because they're all the Legends leagues. There are the Masters leagues, all the superannuation leagues. Get CBUS involved. Just topping up, just looking after their members in retirement. What's the difference?
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask. Is this the road safety? Is it different to the road safety?
Yeah, this must be different to the road safety.
And it's the one they play in England as well that Edgbaston had. So you could theoretically play a few tournaments a year, and nice little earner for the former players. Domestic cricket is nearly here in England. We're a couple of months away, not even. We're 6 weeks away from the county championship, and that is very exciting over here. Who paid for Cam Green to go to Gloucestershire? This is all rather curious. So good on him, getting 5 games in down at Bristol and elsewhere, of course, but based at Bristol before the World Test Championship final. Who's paid for this? Cameron Bancroft. It makes sense that Bangers is there with him, WA teammates. Bancroft's the captain, had a great season playing for Gloucestershire last year. But Gloss haven't got a pot to piss in, and they've said that publicly. They recorded that big loss last year, and it's been publicly revealed on Cricinfo that a generous benefactor wanted a big name to come to the club and paid for Cam Green. Who was it? I mean, last year there was a wealthy... would we call him a cricket fan? His manifesto, the manifesto from Aaron Banks last year, who you might remember from such episodes as bankrolling Brexit. He was willing to, was he going to buy the club or something? I think he was going to try and buy it. And he had a number of errors in that manifesto, which were quite funny, including I think, saying there's only 17 first class.
Number of county teams. Things that showed he wasn't paying a great deal of attention, but still wanted to have the influence.
I'd like someone to find out whether it's him or not. And if it's not, that's fine. But, that's an odd thing. Just, stumping up the cash because you want to get the guy down. And I wonder how much that happens in county cricket. I've never really heard of this being a thing.
I've never heard of it either, but it sounds a bit off. It's like anonymous political donations of large quantities. It's like somebody's assembled a pack, basically. Like there's been a Cam Green super pack. And... are they paying him by the inch? Like, what's the deal? Because you got to pay him a fair bit, Cam Green. Like I would assume.
Pay by the inch,
so,
I think that I sort of feel like Well, they'd have to stay under the salary cap, so it can't be like wild money. But I don't expect Gloucester anywhere near the salary cap anyway.
So maybe they had a lot of room to move. Maybe they were like, all right, you've got all this salary cap space because we're broke. So if somebody's willing to just fill all of that, or maybe Cam Green just wants to have a hit.
Yeah.
And there's a vested interest part to it. But it doesn't seem kosher that you can be anonymously funded, because then it leads to questions about what are the motives for doing that? What's the propriety about doing that? Is the money coming from an acceptable source? All that kind of thing.
Let's flip it. Let's flip this. Sam Constas for Middlesex, my little, my little hobby horse at the moment, right? So, Middlesex will have their own priorities. Word on the street is they want a fast bowler. Fine, whatever. That's all great. But let's pretend that's not happening and we're just dealing in the world that we're referring to here about. What would stop Cricket Australia saying to Middlesex, fuck, we'll pay for that? What an unbelievable experience it would be for Constas getting 4 games at Lords. Yeah. What do you need to pay him? Oh, right, that is it. Okay, well, we'll stump it up. That's a great use of money. Whether Constas plays the World Test Championship final or not, I mentioned Inglis before. That might be where Constas could get squeezed. Anyway, in as far as using Labuschagne as opener and finding room in the middle order. But anyway, it might well be that what would stop Cricket Australia or another organisation saying, let's get Sam to Lords and let's pay for it so it isn't a burden on Middlesex. Anyway, just food for thought on that one. Someone speak to someone and get Sam Constas to Lords. Someone speak to someone. How many times do we have to fucking say it? It's the most logical thing in the world.
Get him a tour at least. Take him around. Get someone in the egg and bacon to take him around.
I'll take him around. It's a beautiful day out. I'll show him the media box, do a selfie together up there. He'll love it. Be awesome. Jeff staying in England. Ben Stokes and Moeen out of the 100. This is an interesting kind of story. This. So Moeen's retiring from all England domestic activities, which I kind of get. I guess he's a full-time circuiteer now. So
all activities? Just he's like not doing the dishes anymore. not mowing the lawn. Not vacuuming. Not coming home tonight.
It's protesting. I suppose he's done his bit for English domestic cricket, having played so often in the Blast, and a lot of people have come through the gates of games in England for watching Moeen Ali. Bit different with Stokes, like he's doing this in order to focus on the Ashes. I wonder the extent to which this is a knock-on from him doing his hamstring injury in the 100 last year.
It's just superstitious. He's like, I hurt myself last year, not going to play this year.
So let's cast forward. Again, the IPL owners and others, but primarily IPL owners who now have the 100 teams. Would this fly in the IPL? If Ben Stokes were Indian and Ben Stokes were registered for an IPL tournament, as they all are, of course, and there was an Indian Test series coming up shortly thereafter that had some serious import, could Stokes, in that scenario, sit out of the IPL? Well, of course he couldn't, right? So I wonder...
Not under that new code of conduct thing they had, which says that you have to be available.
Exactly. That crackdown that says you have to be available. How long before that type of thing is part of the English experience as well? I'm just speculating. How long before... Ben Stokes or the next Ben Stokes in 5 years' time, who's playing for the Mumbai Indians Oval or whatever they'll eventually call it. I think it's Mumbai Indians Oval Invincibles, right? Whatever they're going to call the team in the end.
Yeah, they wanted Lords, but the other mob bought Lords.
The Tech Bros got that. So, but in that scenario, if Ben Stokes as England captain says, "Well, I have got a volatile body. I need to control what I do. I know I'm." Would he have the provision to back out of such a thing? That's going to be an interesting period of time to watch the teething as the game moves in that direction. We've got franchise cricket playing out in India right now, as it turns out.
The main benefit, I would have thought, the thing with the 100 is that it's 3 weeks. So even if they make you play, you can be in the squad and then go, oh, I've got a bit of hamstring soreness, and you can pretty much blood your way out of 3 weeks. Yeah. Hard. You can't do that in the IPL because they've got you for 3 months. But also, how much longer is the 100 going to be 3 weeks once given the IPL owners will own most of it?
It will be double round robin by the end of the decade, if not before. It'll be, it won't, I think it's a bit more than 3 weeks right now. It'll be 6, 7 plus, because they'll see, at the moment, 8 teams, that means 14 group games.
Add a couple of teams.
Matter of time. Absolute matter of time. Franchise cricket in India, bit of a logjam there in the WPL. So RCB are top of the table, but they've had 2 wins and 2 losses, which reflects the way that only 1 game separates the 6 teams at the halfway stage. They've only played 9 games. I mean, Jeff, I don't know if you want to cast your eye on the scores there or whether we just leave it be because, we're actually not paying attention to the tournament. But I can tell you that Elise Perry made 90 not out in a victory a couple of days ago.
There you go. Can bat in T20 cricket. Well, yeah, it's interesting every time. Given there are always there are those questions about Perry and scoring rate and that she went off and addressed and all the rest of it. So it's nice when you see her prove that she's still got the accelerating capacity, I suppose.
It was actually in a losing effort. Sorry, I misunderstood that. She made 81 in a win for RCB, then 90 not out in a lost super over against the UP Warriors. Always loved that with the Z on the end. So, runs from
Warriors.
the usual suspects. For Mumbai, Nat Siver, as you'd anticipate. Annabelle
It's
Sutherland,
very 1997, is it? Warriors with a Z. It's very like I don't know. You could imagine the team owners trying to do some sort of hip-hop stance on an album cover kind of thing when they do their product launch. They're like, this is cool. The children will like it.
Always nice to see Meg Lanning's name with runs next to it. Made 69 for the Delhi Capitals. And Meg Lanning, who was on telly a couple of mornings ago talking about the Lyrebird Foundation, which is an organisation which is starting at the moment and worth Googling to learn more about the man who started Fair Break has taken this on as a new project. And they've got a game at Bowral against an Indigenous team. Meg Lanning's captaining the Lyrebird Foundation. So that's a nice thing with the broader activity around trying to make the game as accessible to as many women and girls as is possible. We might pay a little bit more attention to the WPL when the finals arrive in a couple of weeks. And Jeff, last topic today, Ian Chappell has retired as a columnist. Beautiful wander through the years in his final piece for the Midday publication in India. He's been so prolific in so many parts of the world. Long-standing column with Cricinfo in India as well with Midday, Fairfax News back in the day. He put in there that he started his writing in 1973. So, his writing ended up lasting longer than his broadcasting and his playing put together almost. So he's been a long-term writer. I know he said to us in 2019 in the interview we did with him, and I encourage going back to that if you haven't listened to us with Chappell at his house in the northern beaches of Sydney. It's one of our very favourite interviews. But he kind of said, I never used a ghostwriter. More nuance in this piece. He's like, well, yeah, I didn't use a ghost. I was open to one. And this is the bit I loved. He's like, he acknowledged that he didn't come into that job as a ready-made journalist or a writer. He had to learn the craft. He had to go through the trial period. He had to commit to it as his second profession, and he treated it accordingly. It reminded me of what Nasser Hussain said to us when we interviewed him all those years ago, that when he finished as a player, he didn't automatically assume that he'd be a great broadcaster. He knew that he had to put the work in. And I think that says a lot about commentary that we've made on colleagues who have put the yards in after cricket to become excellent members of the media, that they're rewarded accordingly. And Ian Chappell's right in that tradition.
Yeah, and he, took his lead from Benno, who did his proper journalistic training and all of the rest of it before stepping into the media jobs that he did. And, Ian Chappell's always, I think, someone who has a lot of integrity. There are some faults that you can find through some of the decisions that he made through his career, but he's someone who was honest and upfront and was honest about the limitations in his writing initially, and then making sure that he was dedicated to getting better at it. There aren't a lot of former players who are genuine writers in their own right. Atherton's the only one I can think of in the current mould. Obviously, Mike Brearley still writes to some extent, but in terms of being a regular media contributor, Atherton's the one who sits up there in the press box and writes out his excellent and very pleasant to read, as well as being insightful copy that he puts together, but that's about it.
Yeah, and there are others as well, but Atherton stands out, and as did Chappell, because Chappell's columns were agenda setting. When he was commentating for Channel 9, what Chappell wrote in the paper often was a massive part of the conversation. Jeff, before we go, one thing I neglected to mention earlier, we've got a pretty important Final Word event coming up week after next. Well, actually, it's next week, Tuesday, the 4th of March, a week from now. Lord's Taverners, and I'm very happy to reveal a Taverners event where I'll be on stage with David Gower. I'm hosting it. So remember, Jeff, we did the Gower interview a couple of years ago in his sitting room in London, in his apartment there, and we got to about 1984 before we'd reached out.
I reckon we got to 89, maybe.
Yeah, we did a lot of work on getting the interview ready because Gower's career is such a magnificent one to talk about. He's such a beautiful speaker. And then I think I had to run to do a Guardian OBO in the World Cup, and I had to say, I'm so sorry to end it here, but we have to end it here. Let's do part 2 another time. Well, this is part 2. So it'll be part 2, Gower and me on stage, Tuesday the 4th of March at Bounce. That's on Old Street, so in East London there. This is a night of
Is that a trampoline park?
No, I have been there before. Bounce, I should really know this, Jeff. I feel, it's table tennis. It's table tennis. And the reason it's there is that's where
I'm disappointed. There's a chain in Australia called Bounce, which is a series of trampoline parks. So if you were interviewing David Gower on a trampoline for an hour and a half about the second half of his career, that would be a first for us.
That would be something. So, this is all about table cricket. So young people with disabilities who play table cricket through the auspice of the Tabs. So you get a chance to play table cricket there, watch some of those who play in the national teams and other cricketers with disabilities who will be there. Come along. It's only 15 quid. That includes a drink on arrival. So, when you factor that in, it's like 10 quid to be there or something like that. Get to meet David, who's a wonderful human being, have a chat to him, have a photo with him, and I'll publish the audio of that chat on the podcast feed at some stage as our part 2 with David Gower. All you need to do is jump on the Lord's Taverner's website. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, and it'll be me comparing, so you can have a chat to me as well. And plenty of our patrons will be there, and many of our Edinburgh runners will be there. Last thing I'll say, the 10K remains open. We had 2 new people sign up this week. Jeff's going to be there. I'm going to be there. My wife Rach is running the 10K with Jeff as well.
Carry me. Join up so that you can drag me bodily across the line as I falter and fall to the ground in the last 2 kilometres. I reckon I'll get to 8, and then I think everything's going to shut down.
If I am going to get through that 21 kilometres, I need to get my body right. I'm going to go to yoga, which means that's the end of our episode. It's been season 17, episode 26. Thank you again to everybody for the kind words for our award last week and for listening today. To our partners, Morris Blackburn, to NordVPN, to everyone else we've mentioned today, and especially our dear patrons, patreon.com/thefinalword. Become a member today. Be a proud, passionate, and paid up member of The Final Word. Bye-bye.
See ya.